right, welcome to the Call to Freedom. It is Monday, April the 1st, 2019, and I am your host, as always, Aria DeMezzo of theanarchistshemale.com, joined in the studio today by
Michael Hampton from BitcoinHistory.com.
Awesome. There's some tech news, interesting tech news. I think this would be more my area than it is yours, about Office Depot rigging PC malware scans.
Oh, no.
To sell a lot of tech support. And apparently management within the company knew about this because employees were bringing it to their attention and saying, hey, this sucks. We can't continue doing this. One employee, as I understand it, threatened to quit, saying that he couldn't in good conscience continue, scamming
defrauding customers.
Scamming old women out of money, which is ultimately what it is. Apparently, though, Office Depot and a partner company tricked customers into buying unneeded tech support services by offering PC scans that gave fake results, according to the FTC. Now, it wasn't actually the FTC that discovered this and brought it to anyone's attention, right? It was
employees.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. It was a journalist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who took a brand new computer into Office Depot and ran one of these scans on it and had it returned that it was infected with malware.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, how do you miss that?
Eventually, the FTC got involved, and they announced yesterday, although the article is kind of old, so I think that would be Thursday, that Office Depot and its software supplier, Support.com, have agreed to pay a total of $35 million in settlements.
With a name like that, some company just bought that domain name and is in that business to make money rather than to actually give good support.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like all of those free PC boosting things that you see advertised online. Don't use that crap. Look, if you want to pay somebody to clean up your PC, then pay somebody to clean up your PC. Defendants bilked unsuspecting customers out of tens of millions of dollars from their use of the PC Health Check program to sell costly diagnostic and repair services. Yeah, they violated the FTC Act's prohibition against deceptive practices.
Well, that's just plain fraud. I mean,
it is. It absolutely is. Cairo 7 in Seattle actually aired an expose on it in November of 2016.
Oh, wait, this has been going on that long, and then the federal government's just now catching up.
The FTC is just now getting involved, yes. And obviously, there are countless ways we could have handled this without the FTC getting involved if we would get them out of the way. But, I mean, a 3-year delay is who is going to reimburse the people who were defrauded within that 3-year period?
Yeah, I don't
because
know.
The government took its sweet time in dealing with it. The stores offered PC Health Check scans for free, while claiming the value of the scans was between $20 and $60. Yeah. Yeah, your free scan is worth $60. Yeah, okay. But PC Health Check was configured to tell consumers their companies were infected, regardless of what any scan showed. At the beginning of each scan, consumers were asked if they experienced PC problems such as repeated crashes or slowness. Any yes answer in the survey guaranteed that the program would flag a problem.
So this so-called PC Health Check scanner was just rigged, literally.
Yeah, and I kind of understand the logic behind PC Health Check saying, hey, are you experiencing crashes? If so, you have problems. I would generally agree, but if you're experiencing regular crashes, it's probably not something that a piece of software is going to be able to fix.
Right.
That's when you should get involved with an actual tech support person. While Office Depot claimed the program detected malware symptoms on consumers' computers, the actual results presented to consumers were based entirely on whether consumers answered yes to the 4 questions they were asked at the beginning of the PC Health Check program. PC Health Check doesn't even sound like the kind of thing. It sounds like a scam software.
Yeah, that sounds like something you get in an email that that you really should have deleted as spam, because it is.
Now, obviously, a user who brings a computer to a store for a malware scan is likely to suspect that there is a problem, right?
They're always going to answer yes.
Yeah, they don't do that regularly. At least one of those 4 questions will get a yes. And many of the consumers who got these false scan results bought computer diagnostic and repair services from Office Depot and Office Max that cost up to $300. Support.com completed the services and got a cut of each purchase. Wow, that's so messed up.
This is some crazy stuff.
Office Depot and Office Max merged in 2013, but even before the merger, both were using Support.com, which provides cloud-based software and technical support services directly to consumers and indirectly through clients such as office supply retailers. Tech experts from Office Depot told consumers that PC Health Check would optimize their computers, but in reality, the software did not run complete diagnostics in the first place. It did limited optimizations like removing junk files and reconfiguring certain settings. Now, none of this is terribly surprising. That's about all you're going to get with some sort of PC repair software, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the built-in Windows disk cleanup will do most of that.
Yeah, you really need a tech person who knows what they're doing to go in and actually optimize your computer. One of my favorite little tricks for Windows XP was decreasing the start menu delay because for some reason it came pre-configured with, I think it was a 600 millisecond delay when you click start. You could change that to 0 and get a much more responsive start button. And it irritated me sitting down at a computer that didn't have it because that half a second, it feels like forever.
Oh, yeah. That you know, I actually don't think I ever knew about that.
Yeah, I don't know why it was there, but it sure enough was. Start menu delay. And it may have actually been 1,000 milliseconds. I don't remember now. But it was set arbitrarily for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I never understood why they would put one of those in the first place.
I don't know.
It's bizarre.
To make the computer feel slower?
I would guess so.
It doesn't make sense to me. But even when Windows XP came out, already Linux was my daily driver, so I didn't have a whole lot of experience with it.
Well, I don't fault these Office Depot employees. Most of them. Some of them probably had the tech experience to actually recognize what was going on, but the vast majority of them are people who went through like 3 days of training.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the people who couldn't get hired at the Geek Squad.
Well, even the Geek Squad is just a bunch of tech inferior noobs with 6 days of training instead of 3. But the companies were aware of complaints for years, but kept on using the software to trick consumers. For example, one Office Max employee complained to corporate management in 2012 saying, "I cannot justify lying to a customer or being tricked into lying to them for our store to make a few extra bucks." Office Depot continued until late 2016 to advertise and use the health check program and pushed its store managers and employees to generate sales from the program. In May 2013, Office Max warned its stores not to use the PC Health Check program after consumers received a repair. So you would take your computer into them, they would repair it, and if they ran this software again in front of you, which, ideally you would do as a tech person, because I removed enough viruses to know that you have to show the customer that there's no longer a virus. Otherwise, every little thing that happens for the next 30 days, they're going to call you about it. Like, no, it's still infected. It's still infected. And a lot of times they'll just, end up with another virus because they're idiots and that's how they got the viruses in the first place.
Yep.
So you do, in most cases, you need to show them that, hey, you had these problems, but we took care of them. So if they use the PC Health Check program for this, it would show that, no, the problems were not taken care of and that they still needed a repair. This is the Call to Freedom. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with more of this tech scamming in just a moment. everybody. This is the Call to Freedom broadcast, as always, from the Liberty Radio studio here in Canyon, New Hampshire. And you're invited to give us a call at 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Or if you prefer clearer quality, you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And we've been talking about Office Depot rigging their software, knowingly, it's not their software, but knowingly using this software that they knew to be rigged because employees had brought it to their attention in order to sell people junk that they didn't actually need.
And the employees brought it to their attention over and over and over and over and over, and they just, for years.
The Florida Attorney General's office informed Office Depot of complaints about its tech services in 2013. In 2014, an Office Depot store employee suggested that the company reconfigure PC Health Check so that it does not come back with false positives and or diagnostic plus repair every time. The suggestion was escalated to corporate management. Another employee complaint was escalated to Office Depot management and support.com in 2015. But despite these complaints and concerns, the Office Depot companies instructed its store employees to continue to advertise the free tune-up service, continue to run PC Health Check on computers brought into the stores, and to convert 50% or more of all PC Health Check runs into tech support service sales.
Oh, they were just out for the money then.
Yeah, they knew. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt. They knew they did this intentionally. Employees who pushed the scans got positive performance reviews and extra commissions if they met their weekly PC Health Check runs and tech support service call goals. At the same time, the Office Depot companies censured store managers and store employees who continually failed to meet these company-wide targets. Stores that failed to meet their targets were subjected to underperforming calls with the store's managers that reproached their performances. When the Office Depot sought additional revenue, it instructed its stores collectively to raise millions of dollars in profit by increasing the number of PC Health Check services performed and the rate of converting the PC Health Check services into tech service calls. It's despicable behavior.
They're just literally ripping people off.
In November 2016, Office Depot suspended its use of PC Health Check after Cairo 7 aired a series of investigative reports about the tech service divisions in Washington and Oregon that were flagging malware or malware symptoms on computers that were, unbeknownst to the stores, brand new and straight out of the box.
Yep.
Instead of providing assurances that Office Depot would not continue the practice, the senior manager at the Office Depot companies primarily responsible for procuring tech support vendors testified under oath that it would be proper for the company to continue offering the same service to consumers even after the Cairo 7 news report.
Oh, oh my goodness, that's just doubling down.
It is. The FTC said the settlement prohibits Office Depot from making misrepresentations about the security or performance of a consumer's electronic device and requires the company to ensure its existing and future software providers do not engage in such conduct. Now, what are you going to do about the Office Depot literally engaging in such conduct? They went with this software clearly because of the false positives and the potentials that offered to sell people junk that they didn't need.
Yeah, I don't see anything in this article about reimbursing consumers that were ripped off. It's just, we settled. They agreed not to do it again.
Well, there's $35 million that the FTC is supposed to be collecting, and in theory, that's in order to, reimburse consumers. But how are you possibly going to identify those people in the first place?
Well, they've presumably got a record of them all, and they can probably locate most of them by emailing them or whatever. But
yeah, some of whom probably did need, some sort of repair done on their computer. So it may have been good in a very few select cases, which just further muddies the water. Maybe they have some mechanism. Maybe they'll be able to figure it out. I don't know. But I'm not. It doesn't look good for anarcho-capitalism. When we have companies out there doing crap like that. The average person is completely ignorant when it comes to tech. So how do we combat that? How do we combat the average person's ignorance when it comes to tech with the innate tendency to trust these kind of companies that do crap like this?
I would love to have a good answer to this question, but it's not something that's really new or specific to computers either. I mean, a lot of auto mechanics routinely rip off people on car repairs.
That's a good point. They do. But tech, that's actually better. I was going to say that tech is more, critical to our daily lives than automobiles, but I stopped myself midway through and didn't actually complete that thought. But I mean, that's just as egregious. The average person, has no idea what is wrong with their car when they take it in for a tune-up. More often than not, somebody at AutoZone is going to run one of their little check engine light tools on it. It's going to return something about your air system, and it's not going to fix the problem, but you're going to have bought some new crap from AutoZone.
Which is what they're after. So how do you know when you're getting ripped? How do you protect yourself? How does this...
You just have to have some level of basic knowledge, really, when it comes to these things.
People don't want to have a basic knowledge of cars or their computer. They just want to go about their lives.
Well, then people are going to get ripped off and exploited. People exploit ignorance. I mean, that's always been the case. If you don't know the very basics of working on a vehicle and you take your car to a mechanic and he gives you a $3,000 bill, I mean, that's kind of on you. Obviously, the mechanic shouldn't be doing immoral things like that.
Yeah.
And, word of mouth and all of those kinds of free market checks and balances ideally would keep the mechanic from, operating in that way for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because, it would get out that he couldn't be trusted and things like that. But it was also getting out that Office Depot couldn't be trusted, and they continued making millions of dollars from doing this.
Oh, yeah. They didn't stop after those news reports came out.
But, to answer the question ultimately about what a free market can do about companies like this running roughshod all over, integrity, what is the government going to do about it?
Well, they just, the FTC just forced them into some kind of settlement where they just promise not to do it again.
Yeah, it doesn't really do anything for the consumers who trust Home Depot, and most people won't even hear about this, so they won't even realize that Home Depot is a company that shouldn't be trusted.
Depot, I think.
Office Depot, yeah. What did I say? Home Depot?
Home Depot. Yeah, they do something else.
Yeah, they do something else. I don't think they have a tech support department.
Not the last time I was in there.
But their employees are more knowledgeable, so there is that. If I need to go in and get a certain pipe or something like that, they will know.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least the person in that department will know. Some random person from gardening might not. But when you go to Office Depot and you expect their tech department to know what they're talking about, generally speaking, no, they won't. Most of these stores don't have qualified tech support people, and the extent of their knowledge is basically the ability to run software like this. We'll be back. This is the Call to Freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom and the Rational Review News Digest, located at www.rationalreview.com. It's the Freedom Movement's daily news digest, aggregating stories from all over the internet that are of interest to libertarians and liberty-minded people. They include podcasts, videos, blogs, and news articles, and are now a source for people to receive the Call to Freedom's podcasts. So be sure to check them out at rationalreview.com to stay up to date on all the happenings in the wider world. Speaking of the wider world, I'm not entirely clear on what's going on in the United Kingdom because I'm an American and I see these lunatics over across this ocean that just seem to have totally lost their minds.
Well,
am I understanding this correctly, that they have in fact banned knives?
Yes, apparently so. Yes, they banned knives some time ago.
Hold on. What knives are banned? and what knives aren't, because you kind of have to have knives.
You have to have knives to cut things up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But if you're carrying those home from the shop, they have to be in their original packaging.
Okay, so you're not allowed to have knives in public.
Right.
That's so moronic. Okay, so knives are somewhat illegal in the United Kingdom for whatever ungodly reason they decided that knives needed to be banned. So they have these collection bins.
Because the gun ban didn't work.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did in the United Kingdom, but you kind of have to be a segregated little island in order to achieve something like that.
And the Pistol Act in the UK went into effect in 1920. 99 years ago, everyone had to turn in their pistols.
Interesting.
So it's been a while.
But Avon and Somerset Constabulary, I've never attempted to pronounce that word before in my life, installed the knife surrender bin following a 52% spike in knife crime across the force area in the past year. But one day later, the bin in Weston-super-Mare, what the hell is that?
I don't have this article pulled up.
Was broken into and the knives were stolen.
Were there any knives in it, though? Do we know?
Well, clearly there were. They reported that the knives were stolen, so there must have been some in it.
Well, they think there were knives in it, or they're saying there were knives in it.
Well, I assume they would know. PC John Biggins said, on the evening of March the 13th, the knife surrender bin in Weston was broken into by a number of people. The contents were recovered a short distance away, and the whole incident was caught on CCTV, because of course it was. You're in the United Kingdom. Yeah. Everything is caught on CCTV. We are in the process of identifying those responsible in order to prosecute them.
Yeah, what that actually means is they have no idea who did it. And they probably didn't get their faces on camera because they were wearing hoodies or something.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. It's amazing, though, that they would even attempt this. What are they going to attempt bans on cars when, vehicular homicide spikes as a result of people not having any other methods to kill one another? I don't know if they noticed or not, but humans are kind of psychotic, and they're violent, and they kill each other quite a lot. And it doesn't matter if they do it with a hammer, a spade from a garden, a knife, a gun, or a car, they're going to do it.
Oh, my. Yeah, the UK is a little crazy, though. Since you mentioned cars, they do have a lot of restrictions on cars. Like, you have to have insurance. If your car is not insured and they catch you, they will impound it right then, and you have a week to come back with insurance on that car, or they will crush it.
That's stupid.
Yep.
But in other news, the Supreme Court, according to Slate, just legalized torture. And that's something we discussed a lot. Well, not a lot, but it's something we discussed fairly frequently here on the show, because there is absolutely no justification whatsoever for torture.
No, there's not.
On Monday, 5 justices of the Supreme Court authorized Missouri to torture a man to death.
What?
I imagine that's got to be pretty heavily slanted.
I'm sure it is.
In the process, they appear to have overruled decades of Eighth Amendment precedents in a quest to let states impose barbaric punishments, including excruciating executions on prisoners. The court's conservative majority has converted a once fringe view into the law of the land, imperiling dozens of decisions protecting the rights of death row inmates, as well as juvenile offenders. Its ruling signals the end of an Eighth Amendment jurisprudence governed by civilized standards, and the beginning of a new, brutal era in American capital punishment.
So what are they going to do to torture this guy to death?
Russell Bucklew is a death row inmate in Missouri who suffers from a rare medical condition called cavernous hemangioma. We're going to go with that. Okay. Due to this disorder, his body is covered with tumors filled with blood vessels. Tumors in his neck and throat, his lips and uvula, which make it difficult for him to breathe. They are highly sensitive and frequently squirt blood. A medical expert, Dr. Joel Zivat, has testified that if Missouri administers a lethal injection to him, he will die a slow, agonizing death. His tumors will rupture and fill his mouth with blood, and he will suffocate to death in unbearable pain, choking and convulsing on the gurney as he dies. That was a bit more descriptive than I needed it to be.
Well, it was descriptive enough to really get the point and drive it home. So the guy is not having a great life as it is.
To forestall this fate, Bucklew sought to block his execution by lethal injection, arguing that it would violate the Eighth Amendment's bar against cruel and unusual punishments. Under two Supreme Court precedents, Bays v. Rees and Glossop v. Gross, an inmate challenging his method of execution must provide an available alternative that will cause less pain. Bucklew asked to be killed with nitrogen gas so that he can die from hypoxia, a lack of oxygen, because his death from hypoxia would be faster from his death from lethal injection.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, helium would also work. Well, actually being better because it wouldn't get him high as he died, but...
Right.
I mean, I assume that's what he's going for. That's probably why the alternative was, shot down, because he basically wants to go out by sucking down too much laughing gas, which, as far as ways of dying go, that's probably not the worst out there. But the state shouldn't be administering it anyway. In Monday's Bucklew versus Precythe, the court rejected his claim by a 5-4 vote. Neil Gorsuch's opinion for the court, however, does much more than condemn Bucklew to a harrowing demise. It also quietly overrules, or at least erodes, more than 60 years of precedents, including several written by Justice Anthony Kennedy. Gorsuch embraced a vision of the Eighth Amendment supported by Justices Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia that has consistently been rejected as dangerously extreme by a majority of the court.
So how did he get to this point?
Well, he writes, declares that if a death row inmate seeks to avoid a certain method of execution, he must identify a different one that can be feasibly administered. That's true. But why does the Eighth Amendment prescribe such a test? In Bays and Glossop, the court explained that because it is settled that capital punishment is constitutional, there must be a constitutional means of carrying it out. I'm not sure that it's actually been settled. I mean, I know the state said that they're allowed to execute people, but I'm not sure that actually abides with anything that is written in the Constitution. But since the Constitution did not explicitly forbid the government from utilizing it in this modern era of reconstructivism, obviously it must therefore be allowed, right?
Right.
Because some risk of pain is inherent in any method of execution, the Constitution does not require the avoidance of all risk of pain. The court's duty, then, is to simply ensure that states do not impose a risky method of execution when a less painful method is at their disposal. We're going to get back into what exactly is wrong with the death penalty and how they're administering it here on the Call to Freedom, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Call to Freedom here on LRN.FM. And if you've ever wanted to have sex with prostitutes and then arrest them, or bust people for drugs and then sell the drugs on the side for a nice little bonus, or just simply enjoy the power rush of being a cop without all the paperwork, then you should try the Thin Blue Line game, which can be found at thinbluelinegame.com. It's the only card game in the world that allows you to shoot someone over a broken taillight and then escape accountability with the magical phrase, "I feared for my life." You know, typical cop stuff. So get it now at thinbluelinegame.com. Assault and batteries not included. But for a limited time, you can order your copies and use the coupon code CTF to have all shipping costs waived. So go get it. That's thinbluelinegame.com. Speaking of police executing people, because ultimately that is what they do, whether you're pulled over for a broken tail light or whether you've been, put on death row for a crime that you're honestly not terribly unlikely to be totally innocent of. The Supreme Court, led by Gorsuch, who is the new conservative, I guess, has just decided that, I don't know, Salon is being, Slate is being a bit hysterical about it.
Aren't they usually?
They are. I would agree that, if the medical expert is correct, and I have no reason to assume he's not, then what they want to do to him, it does sound like cruel and unusual punishment. But that's true of any sort of execution.
No.
It may not be unusual because the state has been doing it for such a very long time, but it's still certainly cruel.
Well, execution itself is cruel. But, why do they stop using the guillotine? I mean, that's quick. It's pretty painless,
I don't know if it's painless. I would imagine it's probably not painless.
Well, it might be painful for a very brief moment.
Yeah, but that very brief moment may be absolute hell.
We should
and
talk
it may
to some people
and it may feel like it lasts an eternity. We living, we have no idea what it feels like to die or how time drags out during that last second of life or whatever.
Yeah, we should find out then.
How?
Interview someone who's just been beheaded
and ask them what?
How does it feel?
I don't think you would get an answer.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm going to assume. Okay. I'm going to assume that it hurts.
I'm sure it does.
And that it qualifies as cruel and unusual to a moral human being. As Thomas wrote in Bayes, though, an execution only infringes upon the Constitution when terror, pain, or disgrace are superadded. So long as a state does not superadd pain to an execution, it is complied with the Eighth Amendment. Thomas's theory would effectively shut down challenges to every method of execution unless an inmate had evidence that was impossible to obtain that the state was sadistically and gratuitously increasing the pain of his death.
Yeah, there's no way to prove that until after it's happened.
I would say there's no...
Is there?
I mean, in the case of this guy, Buckley, or whatever his name was, I don't remember now, and it's not right in front of me because I scrolled down, it sounds like it would qualify as unusually painful.
Is it because of his sadistically and maliciously, though?
Well, I mean,
or are they just doing it bureaucratically?
Well, I mean, that couldn't even be proven prior or after the fact, I would say. Because, I mean, it's not like they're going to write that down. Like, oh, yeah, I want to see this dude suffer. So this is the method of execution we're going to use. But I would argue that in this case, it's probably not. It's probably just a refusal of the state to recognize his legitimate medical condition that is going to apparently substantially increase the amount of suffering involved with what is normally considered to be a relatively humane way of killing someone. A majority of the court did not adopt Thomas's view in either case. And then Bucklew, it's Bucklew, not Buckley, okay. Gorsuch writes that revisiting that debate isn't necessary here. But he then does exactly that, and adopts Thomas's interpretation of the Eighth Amendment, effectively overruling 60 years of precedent. Is there still a death penalty here in New Hampshire? I know it got voted on.
Yeah, I know there was a vote. I don't know if it's
Ian nodded, so yes, we still have it.
Exactly.
Okay, they're still in the process of trying to repeal it. That's good. The state should definitely not have the right to kill people for any sort of offense, but especially criminal ones. We don't want the state just randomly shooting people, obviously, right? I think that's a given.
Yeah, that's it.
So why do we change the rules when first they say, oh, well, you broke this rule that we wrote down on this sheet of paper, so now we can shoot you.
Yeah, now we get to kill you.
It's just a way of them justifying what they want to do anyway, which is killing people who don't obey.
Of course, the thing about the death penalty is that, we're going to kill you after we add 20 years of bureaucracy on top of it.
Yeah, and that's why California attempted their little speed pass, I guess I would call it.
The express lane for the death penalty?
Yeah, well, they wanted to, make it where when someone was on death row that didn't drag out for 2 or 3 decades, it was because that seems to be the worst part, according to the inmates on death row, is the waiting. Yeah. Gorsuch first provides a mini treatise on the methods of execution permissible when the Eighth Amendment was ratified, including a grisly description of hangings. The force of the drop could break the neck and sever the spinal cord, making death almost instantaneous. More often, it seems the prisoner would die from loss of blood flow to the brain, which could produce unconsciousness, usually within seconds, or suffocation, which could take several minutes. He writes that hanging was permissible because it wasn't intended to be painful, which is Thomas's test, not the Bayes-Glossop test.
So he's saying it's not whether the method is painful, but whether the people doing the execution intend for it to be painful.
Yeah, which would be impossible to prove in any direction. You can't prove what someone intends.
Unless I tell you, but even then you can't really prove it. You're just going on what they say.
Exactly. Yeah, it can't be proven in any event. Then Gorsuch purports to lay out the actual Bayes-Glossop test and, in the process, smuggles Thomas's test into it. The justice writes that under this new standard, a prisoner must show a feasible and readily implemented alternative method of execution when the question... Okay, or not. Pay attention to this language. When the question is in dispute, when the question in dispute is whether the state's chosen method of execution cruelly superadds pain to the death sentence. According to Gorsuch, and you have to pay careful attention to this language because they're freaking attorneys, this is what they do, the question in dispute here is whether lethal injection cruelly superadds pain to Bucklew's death. But that language does not come from Bayes or Glossop. It comes from Thomas's separate opinions, which were joined only by Scalia. With one neat trick, Gorsuch has transformed the superadds pain test from a minority viewpoint to binding Supreme Court precedent.
Yeah, that was a nice trick. I don't know why they came along and decided now's the time to weaken the Eighth Amendment, but okay, here we are.
Oh, because they have the votes for it now, and that's what these pro-life conservatives love more than anything is taking life. Normally brown people in other countries, but the death penalty, they also really like that as well. You're allowed to kill everybody except unwanted fetuses to conservatives. Everything else is pretty much okay.
Yeah, I don't get that. That's not a pro-life position.
No. Since 1958, the Supreme Court has rejected an originalist interpretation of the Eighth Amendment, which would, after all, permit the hanging of children, among other ghastly punishments. I don't think it would.
Did they hang children 200 years ago?
Evidently they did. But the changes in what is considered cruel and unusual, those change over time as a result of social progress and, whatever we would like to call it. I don't see the originalist interpretation of the Constitution really having anything to do with that. What qualified as cruel and unusual in their day doesn't mean you should interpret the Constitution differently today because we have a different standard of what constitutes cruel and unusual. Right. It's still cruel and unusual, and we would decry that as cruel and unusual. So I think they're confused about constructionism and originalism.
Yeah, I get it. What makes...
Instead, the court has asked whether a punishment violates the evolving standards of decency of a civilized society. Well, that's much better.
That's a little better.
Bayes and Glossop did not embrace this standard, but they did not reject it either. After all, by forcing states to use the less painful of two execution methods, the court adopted a resolutely non-originalist view of the Eighth Amendment. And we're going to dig further into the death penalty in just a moment. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, broadcast as always from the Liberty Radio Studio here in Keene, New Hampshire. I'm your host, as always, Aria, author of the book Dancing in Hellfire, which you can find on Amazon. Joined in the studio today by
Michael Hampton from BitcoinHistory.com.
And I have been asked repeatedly now about the podcast situation. Evidently, I forgot to hit publish Friday afternoon. It's really not a big deal. I've already corrected it. I have not published Friday's episode yet because we just, published one. I do look like a dog. Thank you for reminding me. I didn't want to upload, 2 podcasts within the space of an hour, so I put a bit of an extra delay. I'll probably finish it during the next long break. So we've been discussing the Supreme Court and the death penalty, and this Bucklew guy out of, I don't remember the state now, I think it was Ohio, Missouri, who has this medical condition that I won't even attempt to pronounce again, that gives him a lot of tumors that are filled with blood vessels and things like that. And his doctor, a medical expert, testified that, if the state goes through with this execution, it will qualify as cruel and unusual because it's going to cause all of these tumors to burst, and it's going to effectively drown him in his own blood, which certainly does not sound pleasant.
Yeah, that's completely that's not going to be a nice way to go.
And he came before the state and he said, look, instead, just suffocate me with nitrogen, which the state has said, well, you haven't demonstrated that that's feasible. Well, it's really not hard to suffocate somebody with some type of gas like that. I would imagine that the state, it costs like $30 to kill yourself with helium, right?
Yeah, it's not hard. And
nitrous oxide, or nitrous, because you wouldn't even want the oxide in it, presumably, would be about the same cost. So it would probably be cheaper than lethal injection in the first place and easier to set up, and it would be a much more painless way of dying. But Gorsuch didn't agree that this constituted cruel and unusual punishment, but he apparently wrote the opinion and worked in some previously minority opinions and turned those into binding Supreme Court precedents, even though they were not official rulings of the court previously. So he basically just took some random pleb's opinion, except, it was Clarence Thomas,
Supreme Court justices,
and wrote it into the law of the land. He also cast doubt on a vast range of precedents built on the evolving standards of decency rule by substituting it for the super adds pain principle. This is really hard to follow. For instance, Supreme Court rulings outlawing the execution of minors, the mentally disabled, and individuals who committed non-homicidal crimes all rest on the evolving standards of decency rationale. Were people ever... Well, yeah, I know they were. They were executed for non-homicidal crimes, but I don't think that's still the case today, is it not?
Not that I have heard, not recently anyway.
And I don't think it's really the Supreme Court's purview to determine whether a punishment fits the crime, so to speak. I'm not aware of the Supreme Court ever ruling on that. It would seem like something. Isn't it generally a jury that hands down the recommended sentence?
Yeah, generally it is a jury that either decides or recommends the death penalty.
So too do decisions that strictly limit the imposition of life without parole on juvenile offenders. Kennedy favored this test, which may be why he voted to block Missouri from executing Bucklew in 2008. Now, Justice Brett Kavanaugh has replaced Kennedy, and on Monday, he provided the 5th vote to let Missouri kill Bucklew and tacitly repudiate his predecessor's 8th Amendment jurisprudence. That seems about right. That's why they wanted Trump, was to stack the Supreme Court with ultranationalist statists. And that
seems to be what we've got.
Yeah, I don't know if ultranationalist is really a fair assessment, but they're definitely hardcore statists. Yeah. That's what conservative essentially means today.
Well, even the non-conservative ones are statists.
Liberals certainly prefer the state. They value the state, but in different ways. I don't think liberals understand what they believe about the state. And I'm not going to try to parse their various contradictions about opposing things like this while valuing the state's ability to murder people. They don't make a lot of sense. So I'm not going to try to make their position make sense. That would be a fun exercise if I had, 5,000 pages I wanted to write to show how it's totally not a contradiction, but it is. Criminal justice reformers must now wait for the other shoe to drop. to see how far Kavanaugh is willing to veer to the right. If the court pursues Gorsuch's originalist path, then it must overturn Kennedy's juvenile justice decisions and permit juvenile life without parole once again. And it may do so as early as next year. The court could also allow the execution of minors, mentally disabled people, and those who committed crimes other than murder. See, this is why you don't have a Supreme Court, because you have no one who can go through and say, hey, no, you people, you've lost your minds. We're not doing this.
Yeah, but if you don't have a Supreme Court, who are you going to appeal to?
Well, that's the issue here, is that you can't appeal the Supreme Court to anyone. You know, that's the issue with statism as a whole. And I get asked quite a lot, not lately, but I have been asked quite a lot, you know, what are you going to do when somebody with more guns than you comes to kidnap you and make you their slave or whatever? I will shoot them, right? And they go, but they have bigger guns and you don't have any police to call now.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to call in people with bigger guns to shoot the people with bigger guns, right? Yes, that's essentially the argument.
Mm.
But the police, the military, the state has the biggest guns.
Yeah,
to the extent
who's got bigger guns than they do?
Yeah, we're not even allowed to own guns that can even compete with theirs, much less be better and bigger and, you know, more effective. So what are you going to do when the state decides to kidnap you at gunpoint and make you its slave, or just to shoot you? Who are you going to call then? Because you can't call the police because they're the ones doing it. It's the kind of question that can only come from people who have never faced the true horrors of the state.
Yeah, most people have never actually even thought about this in their minds, let alone actually had a policeman point a gun at them or anything like that.
But that's the issue with the state, is that they are supreme over the land. And once you run out of your appeals and they don't want to cooperate with you, there is no one else to whom you can appeal. Like, who could the Jews of Nazi Germany have appealed to?
No one.
No. The rest of the world, perhaps, if they had been able to organize and actually make that appeal. And they weren't able to at the time because of what their government was doing to them. But even that aside, you know, it still ultimately comes down to somebody else with the biggest guns in their land being willing and able to step up and put a stop to it. Like, if we in the United States were to begin doing things like that, who could the people that were murdering and torturing appeal to? Russia and China, they don't have the power to step in and do anything about it. Our government would be able to do whatever it wants, and it does whatever it wants today, as you can see in the Middle East.
Yeah.
The court could also allow the execution. I said that. Okay. So long as a state does not super add pain, it can apparently get away with anything, even barbaric executions that don't intentionally inflict unnecessary suffering. Welcome to our post-Kennedy death penalty jurisprudence, where legalized torture is back on the table.
Still trying to figure out what they mean by super ad. Is that some kind of legal term that I have never heard before? Did they define it?
I'm sure they did. What it seems to mean is essentially just adding unnecessary pain to the execution. Okay. But Slate is certainly being a bit moronic here by describing this as torture. Torture is the intentional infliction of pain and suffering on another human being, right? If they don't intentionally inflict unnecessary suffering and pain, then it's literally not torture.
So it's just necessary suffering and pain.
Well, I'm not going to say it's necessary. I'm saying it's not intentional, right? It may or may not be intentional. It may or may not be necessary, but it's certainly not torture if it's not intentional. This is the call to freedom. All right, welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. As always, you're invited to give us a call at 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Or you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And we're going to move on from our discussion of the death penalty and Brett Kavanaugh and Slate's sort of hysteria because a conservative has done a thing and they don't seem to, know how to deal with that and process it in a healthy and sane manner.
A lot of progressives are unable to process things in a sane and healthy manner.
Yeah, and so are a lot of conservatives, to be fair. We're neither conservative nor liberal here on the show. We are, depending on who you ask. If you ask a conservative, then we're a bunch of Antifa leftists.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask a progressive, then we're hardcore right-wing demagogues.
Literally Hitler.
Yeah, might as well be. But, it came to my attention, and I don't remember now who brought it to my attention, but somebody sent me the message on Facebook that everyone who is currently a host of Call to Freedom is some kind of LGBT. So I could certainly understand why they, have that perception among conservatives that, we're the, what did they call us? The LGBT, Muslim, Jewish, transgender tolerance hour or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. Where was that? Was that in Discord or was that on Facebook? I don't recall
remember
where we saw that.
I mean, since Shimo versus Nazi, I've been targeted by trolls and on pretty much all of my social media accounts. I don't remember now which one that was sent to.
Yeah, I know I've seen it. I just don't remember where.
The funny thing to me is, it was this group called Arab Andy who targeted us Friday with all of the calls that we got toward the end of the show, right? Well, I'm on their Discord server now.
Right.
Verified my membership about an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened with the obscene / bowl cut people. What do they call it? The bowl crew or something like that. Mm-hmm. Another troll group who, from what I've heard, was going to come after us and instead didn't because I'm just going to do a show with them instead.
Okay, that works.
Oh, crap. It is Monday. I've got to work tonight, though, so I can't do it tonight.
Oh, no.
I guess it will be next Monday. Their main host just moved and had to set up his new studio, and he didn't do that until, I think, last Monday. So yeah, that's generally how I prefer to handle this sort of thing. I was like, I'm going to go dive headlong into this den of trolls and Nazis and see what happens.
Yes.
And so far, it has been hilarious. To me, nobody else seems to really find it funny, but I do.
I don't know. I'm enjoying what I've seen of it.
You have not seen the worst of it. You have not seen the old black dude banging the fat white old dude.
No,
in the rear. I have. You have not seen the dude upside down with a tree in his anus. I have.
Oh my!
Nor have you seen No,
that was not photoshopped.
It was not. Nor have you seen the. Oh my God! I do have to show you this one. I can't because that phone broke. Oh. I can get it elsewhere. He took these two pieces of plexiglass and he put them between his. He put his junk between them and he bolted them down until it was almost completely flat.
Okay.
And it's one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen, but not quite as bad as the other one I was sent, which is some dude hanging upside down with a rope tied around his member and supporting his full body weight. This is the kind of stuff I'm getting sent on a daily basis right now. So you got to have a sense of humor when stuff like that. Because what else am I going to completely leave Telegram and Discord and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all of these other places? No. I'm going to laugh about it and carry on.
Yeah. Are these guys just completely into CBT and things like that or what?
That's what I was wondering. I was thinking about that earlier when I was outside smoking. I was like, these guys have a lot of gay porn saved onto their phones. Right?
Why?
Yeah, well, because they send it to me and it's like really messed up stuff that nobody would want to see.
You could send it at a moment's notice, but you're keeping that stuff around.
These people kept a screenshot of a nip slip when I was sitting in that chair. It happened once, right? Somebody clipped it.
Oh my!
Like as it happened, and they kept it. This was like in June of last year. They kept it and then hit me with it again a few days ago. So I am honored that you kept a picture of my nipple for such a very long time.
Yeah.
I don't even keep pictures of me that long.
Yeah, we're glad you love us. I mean,
I certainly don't have any gay porn on my phone. I do now, technically, because I downloaded that to send to somebody else. Don't ask why. It's really funny, though. Nobody else would get it. But, yeah, that's the kind of crap I'm getting. And if it's not that, it's just, being called the F word, which I've resolved to stop saying on FTL or LRN's Twitch channel, so go me for that. But I get called that a lot, and the typical insults and things like that. It's just like, oh no, what am I going to do? Some random internet pleb insulted me.
Yeah. Oh my feelings are so hurt.
Yeah, my self-esteem lies tattered in the dirt outside, just burying it in the graveyard. Anyway,
and we just think you're funny.
Yeah, it's definitely funny. It provided a lot of really good conversation Friday afternoon. We got into topics that we never discuss, like me coming out in
Mississippi.
In Mississippi, yeah, I don't ever talk about that because to me it's just a thing that happened. We also talked about bullying, which is something that we never discussed here on the show, but it's certainly something that should be addressed. Or in the capacity that we can actually influence anything.
It's stuff that affects people's lives, and the thing about that is we need to speak to people where they are if we're going to get these ideas of liberty to them. So these are the issues that people are going through, and we need to.
And that's an excellent tie-in. I wish we had thought about it Friday, but the state is the ultimate bully. The police are bullies, so Indeed. It's definitely something that the average person, the average person will be able to relate to because the average person has been pulled over by these bullies.
Yeah, that kid that bullied you in high school 10, 5 years, 20, however long ago it was, if you're an adult now, he's probably a cop right now.
There's a pretty good chance of it. Or the kid you bullied is now a cop, and now they're looking for some payback. It's hard to guess what people's motives are, but there's a reason the spousal abuse rate among police is 40%. And it's because they're bullies. That's what they do. They've been trained their entire lives by society and then officially and formally by a police department to utilize violence and terrorism in order to achieve their aims. So if they're out in public and you don't listen, they're going to beat you. And if you're at home and you're married to one of these people and you don't listen, 40% of them are going to beat you.
And they'll get away with it, too, because they have that shiny badge that gives them extra rights and extra credence. Yeah. People believe a cop because he's a cop, not because he's telling the truth, because he's not. They're trained to lie.
To come back to this question, of what do you do when somebody with a bigger gun comes? What do you do when your cop husband beats you half to death, right?
Yeah,
you can't call
his friends.
You can't call the police. Because they're going to have his back. They're going to work with him. And there's overwhelming evidence to support that allegation. Very few are going to actually do anything about it. They're certainly not going to arrest him or anything like that. This is the Call to Freedom. Don't go anywhere. We're going to actually get into a story of this mongrel mob. Leader says that his members won't hand in their guns because they need them for protection. And I would agree. We'll be back in just a moment.
Peace inside is right with you.
Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and as always, you're invited to give us a call. That number is 603-283-6160. Once more, that's 603-283-6160. Or if you prefer clearer quality, you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And we're actually being called now by PacketSniffer, who has been in the Discord for a couple of weeks. I've seen him around anyway. I don't recall ever having any sort of extensive conversation with him, but he has been attempting to call into the show for most of the show, and there were some issues that we had to, work out. But I think we finally got those. So we're going to go now to PacketSniffer, who said he has opinions on things that we've been discussing. So PacketSniffer, what are those opinions?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that all the issues that we had were user error on my part.
LRN.FM.
Oh.
Yeah.
God, that didn't take long. Yeah. I don't think he meant to.
Yeah, that sounded like it probably was an accident.
So I have not hung up on you, PacketSniffer. But I did mute you and dump that portion so that it didn't go out on the air. Obviously, you cannot say things like that here on the show. Will you let me know when that's rebuilt?
The nice thing about the way I've got that dump machine set up, if you do want to give somebody a second try, it works differently than the way Free Talk Live's dump works. On Free Talk Live, the time resets and has to rebuild. Here, it plays a sound effect, so it plays a toilet flushing sound effect, and so you're almost instantly rebuilt as soon as the audio finishes playing.
Okay, so it is rebuilt now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it took like 3 seconds or something.
Okay, awesome, thanks. All right, so PacketSniffer, we're going to go back to you now. If you can watch your language a bit. Are you still with us?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I just forgot that we had the FCC and all that we have to deal with. We have to play the government's game here.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We don't do a Twitch-only show. I do, but it's just me playing video games. But Call to Freedom doesn't. That's not necessarily a bad idea. We could call it Call to Freedomer.
Yeah.
I would love to see more LRN FM get less censored, away from the FCC.
More uncensored stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely prefer to be uncensored.
Every time I've done Freer Talk Live, which has been once, I had a lot of fun. So
it's definitely a relief when you get into the habit of watching your language and not talking about certain subjects that, are fun to talk about.
Yeah, no, I mean, you heard me. I just, I blurred it out. I don't even think about censoring myself. Like what 5-year-olds are out here listening and can't hear the word, whatever word we can't say.
Yeah. So back to the topic at hand, though.
Yeah.
What were your opinions?
My opinions are, I think we should have the death penalty.
Really?
Honestly, yeah.
According to specific parameters, or just according to however the state... Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not ready to give my full dissertation here, but definitely there should be some parameters around the idea of death penalty. If you provide enough information for me to see that you do not successfully live in society, then you should be removed.
Well, what crime should be eligible for the death penalty?
I haven't thought about that, but I mean, obviously taking someone's life should be thought about, taking someone's life, removing the innocence from a child.
That's one of the non-murder ones.
By that you mean like child rape, right?
That's a problem. What?
By that you mean child rape, right? Removing the innocence from a child. Okay, that's a weird euphemism.
Well, that's I not to nitpick, but that's an interesting choice of words. You say child rape and not child sex, whereas like it would be non-consensual versus consensual child sex.
Well, in regard to children, I'm not prepared to make the case that a child can consent to participate in a sexual act.
I actually did a little bit of research last night, unintentionally, about the fact that a lot of major scientists decided that 30 is the new adult and not 18, like the law suggests, or 18 or 21 for alcohol if you so imbibe.
Interesting. I would like to look into that research. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, especially in this modern era of, colleges are increasingly just parenting. By that point, people should be adults, but we're finding they're not, and that they don't know how to do basic things like sweeping or laundry or anything like that.
Okay, so
one of the top Googles that I found are how to boil an egg, how to hard boil an egg, how to fry an egg.
Yeah, they've got YouTube videos now.
Food. Yeah, they do. It's big money to make videos about how to cook food and stuff that like maybe your mother or whatever. I should
do some how to do makeup tutorials.
To, whatever gender you assign to cooking.
Well, cooking doesn't really have a gender, but every gender eats. So
absolutely, I eat significantly from my gender.
What?
Oh,
I don't know how gender got into this. I really don't.
Yeah,
I guess I tuned out during that part.
I didn't want to imply that the wife or the woman of the house teaches the children to cook. I didn't want to imply that because 2019, Yang Gang, #kilo dollar, zinc.
Somebody has...
Zinc. Yeah. That's an inside joke for those who are not on the discord.lrn.fm server.
We enjoy... Bitcoins are great, but like, have you ever invested in zinc?
I have not invested in zinc.
Well,
I have not either.
You should. Not only in the personal ingestion at your choice, but also the price. The price has raised 4 cents in the past 2 weeks.
So we should view it as a what's the word I'm looking for? An investment.
A commodity as well as a utility and a infrastructure and a gender.
So do you think we should make
does it all.
actual currency out of zinc?
Yeah, zinc coin. I'm making it. Zinc coin, mine it, give me money. Zinc coin.
It's too late. The federal government beat you to it. All the pennies now are made of zinc.
Well, I should eat some pennies.
And you know how
I would not recommend eating a penny.
Well, I mean, the pennies are like coins.
They are coins, yes.
But
you are correct.
Pennies are like corn. You can enjoy them twice.
Okay.
Oh, my.
I did not need that visual. So, okay. All of this aside, happy April Fool's to us, right?
No. This is me. I'm PacketSniffer 24/7.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know you're PacketSniffer.
Hey, Aria.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I'm not Jay, this person that is supposedly who I am. I'm not. I am my own person, and I assume my own gender, and my gender is zinc.
Your gender is zinc.
Well, thank you for the call. That has been PacketSniffer. Yeah, I'm not. Gender is a social construct. I'm going to continue saying that. If you've constructed your own little label for gender, your own little definitions of it that include zinc as a gender, then more power to you, I guess.
Go right ahead. I pick a pronoun.
It's not one I'm particularly inclined to recognize, but you can certainly make a case for it, I suppose. And I would be receptive if you had, anything more than just random trolling I would love to see zinc coin, though. You can actually do that. You can make an ERC20 token and call it zinc coin. So go make your own little scam coin, crap coin, ERC20 token using parity. Plenty of people have done it. This is the Call to Freedom. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more of this discussion in just a moment. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and this is just a reminder that our podcasts have moved from Spreaker and can now be found on Podbean at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com. The podcasts can also be found on Google Play Music and Spotify by searching for Call to Freedom. The archive at Spreaker is no longer being updated, so to stay recent on the show, you'll need to go to calltofreedomlive.podbean.com or use Spotify or Google Play Music. I have been specifically requested by somebody who listens to the show regularly to actually finish the process of getting the show onto iTunes. And I told them that I will do so tomorrow. So after tomorrow, you will be able to find our episodes on iTunes.
Yay? Because
apparently there's no other convenient way for this person to find them and listen to them. And, it'll help.
Do iPhone users not have like a normal podcast apps?
They do, but because apparently how it interfaces with the RSS feed that we use, which is calltofreedomlive.podbean.com/feed.xml, it doesn't update when there are new episodes for some reason. So it allows them to technically add it, but it only pulls the existent archive.
Okay, so it's just iTunes being a little crazy?
Yeah, I don't know what,
or whatever they're
I don't
using.
know what software they're using. They said they tried several, and none of them updated properly when new episodes were uploaded.
iTunes isn't perfect, regardless of what you feel about Apple and iTunes. I think the software's junk, personally.
That's why
it's the majority of the downloads for Free Talk Live.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's disappointing.
Wow. Yeah.
Because, that's
it's
why...
always been.
That's why I haven't used... or completed the process because it requires installing iTunes onto my computer in order to facilitate it. And I really don't
Virtual machines.
I think it has to be persistent, though, and I wouldn't leave a virtual machine persistent. So once I set it up,
I don't have iTunes.
So once I set it up, it's just going to go on in the background, and I can uninstall iTunes?
You have to submit your podcast to iTunes somehow. I don't remember how you do it.
It's done through the iTunes software now.
Yeah, once you've done that, you'll be fine.
Okay, perfect. That's good news, because I don't want iTunes on my computer. I don't even want Spotify on it anymore. Spotify gave me a 30-day trial, and I was like, man, this software is awesome. But now that the trial is expired and they want $10 a month, I'm like, I'm not, no. It's totally not worth it. I can just hit the shuffle button on VLC Media on my phone and get exactly the same music.
But you're not interrupted with ads every 3 songs.
Well, every 30 minutes, they will offer you a video that you can watch for 30 minutes of ad-free music. You can turn the sound down, go outside and smoke or whatever while it plays.
I actually found a way around that.
Really?
Yeah, at least on desktop. I haven't tried it on my phone, but on desktop, I used to have Spotify Premium, paid the money, canceled it, and I still don't get ads. But here's what I'm doing. On my desktop, I VPN, and my VPN endpoint is in Canada. So I never see ads on Spotify.
Interesting. And you think it's because of the...
Yeah, I think it's partly because I used to have Spotify and canceled it, and partly because it thinks I'm in Canada.
I don't see why thinking you're in Canada would keep them from serving you ads.
I'm not sure.
Curious.
It is curious, but I'm going to enjoy not having the ads for free as long as it lasts.
Well, it's not really the ads that bug me about Spotify. I don't mind sitting through a 30-second ad for 30 minutes of music. To me, that's an even trade. I mean, people who listen to our show listen to way more ads than that.
That's true.
To get 30 minutes of conversation. So, I mean, ads are not really anathema to me. What gets me is that there are so many features that I enjoyed about Spotify Premium that do not exist in the free version. Like, I want to be able to just pick the song and play it from my playlist. You can't do that anymore. You can't do that if you don't have a premium account. You can't just create a new playlist and roll with it. You have to. You can play your playlists, right?
But you can't make a new one?
I don't know if you can make a new one or not. I haven't attempted to be honest. But you can't go through the 400 songs that I've added to my playlist and find the one I'm looking for and tell it to play and then continue with the rest of the playlist. I have to just play the playlist and then hit shuffle or next 6 times, and it'll say, oh, you skipped too many songs and you can't skip anymore.
Mine is not doing that.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
Well, I don't know if the PC version does
it. Go anywhere and play whatever. But
I haven't listened to the PC version of Spotify in more than a week.
Yeah, no, I only use it on the desktop. So.
I primarily use the mobile app. It was really cool while it lasted. You know, being able to start a song on my computer, go downstairs to put on my makeup, and just hit a button, have the same song continue playing on my phone. That was a cool little feature.
Yeah, that's nice.
I could also set that up there on my LAN easily, just using Windows Media Center or something. I wouldn't recommend using Windows Media Center because I wouldn't want to open up my media to the whole freaking world, which you kind of have to do because of Microsoft.
Yeah, thank you.
But, I mean, it was something I did back when I lived in Mississippi and I needed my 360 and my computer to communicate. It was convenient enough then to be able to just watch something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I was able to keep my nephew busy for hours at a time with me not having to deal with him by just navigating on the Xbox to my folder and playing Who Framed Roger Rabbit from my PC.
On the Xbox from the PC, yeah.
That's a cool little feature, and I like that kind of integration, right? But Spotify wasn't really integrated as much as it was. Their server already hosts where I'm at in the song anyway.
Right.
So they just moved it from one endpoint to another. There wasn't any actual direct communication between my two devices, so they weren't actually integrated with each other. Which
everything was going through Spotify.
Yeah, which I'm not particularly a fan of. But like I said, you know, it's not something I'm interested in renewing. They're trying to tempt people by saying, "Oh, but you get Hulu now too." And I don't know, $10 for Hulu and Spotify may be worth it if
you watch enough TV and Hulu has the show you want.
Well, there's a much bigger if for me, and that's that my Jewish boyfriend has me on his YouTube TV account. So anything that gets broadcast on cable television, I get to watch for free.
Right.
It's normally a $40 a month service, but it doesn't cost me anything. So I can't be bothered to pay $10 a month for Hulu to find out what they even have.
Yeah, if I had that, I wouldn't either.
Yeah. I would recommend people get YouTube TV over things like Hulu and Netflix anyway, because Netflix's selection, it sucks. If you don't want to watch a show from the 90s, it's not on Netflix anymore. Unless it's one of their new animated series or one of their new original series.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Whatever happened to Netflix? Why are they not getting new content?
Because all of these other companies, like Fox, they started their own Fox show streaming service. Cartoon Network started their own. They've always had their own. I think Adult Swims are free, though.
Yeah, but Adult Swims are mostly free. But
Disney pulled most of their movies and started their own instead, and that was just the trend that people kept making. Oh, well, we're not going to continue licensing these to you. We're just going to do it directly. And Netflix paid like $100 million just to keep Friends as a result.
Oh, yeah. That was probably a big waste.
Oh, it was absolutely. If anybody who still gives a crap about this terrible, unfunny show from the 90s has the entire freaking season DVD collection anyway.
Yeah, all 10 of them.
Yeah, I know people who have this collection, and it's horrifying. I have never seen an episode of Friends in my life, and I am never going to.
I have seen parts of several episodes of Friends, and that was enough to never, ever want to watch it.
Yeah. I don't understand what the appeal was, but hey, to each their own, to be fair, but I have no interest in watching it. And I'm certainly disappointed that they chose to buy that instead of the rights to Invader Zim, which is not available on any of these platforms, which sucks because that's one of the funniest shows ever.
I did find a YouTube playlist with Invader Zim.
Okay, well
it hasn't been yanked down yet.
That's what Daria did back in the day before their season DVDs were popular enough for people to buy them. Some fan who just really liked the show uploaded every single show to YouTube and put it into a playlist for people who liked the show to watch. But as soon as the DVDs were released, he pulled them down.
Yep.
Of his own accord. Nobody asked him to. He was just like, okay, well, I was just doing this so that people could watch the show I enjoy. Now people can watch the show I enjoy, so I'm not going to take money from the makers anymore.
Right.
So if something like that exists for Invader Zim, I'm going to be all over it because I had every Invader Zim episode downloaded to my computer. Keyword being had.
They got lost.
No, they didn't get lost. They got deleted in one of my purchases of stuff that I don't need anymore because I can just watch it on Netflix or YouTube TV.
And we see how well that worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So now I check for things and see if they're on one of these platforms that I use before I actually delete it from my computer.
Yeah. I think I think the Pirate Bay is going to have a resurgence.
Yeah. I try not to download a bunch of torrents, but if there is something worth torrenting, it would definitely be Invader Zim and its episodes. Plus, I never actually watched it. I'd watch like one episode a month or something like that. I was like, I'm not going to miss it if I delete it. And since then, I've just been like, I really want to watch this. Well, this is the Call to Freedom. We're going to talk about the border wall when we get back, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. As always, I'm your host, Aria DiMezzo, composer of the music you're hearing right now, which you can listen to at soundcloud.com/Aria-DiMezzo. I really need to make a note to remove that hyphen. So I'm doing that right now. Joined in the studio, of course, today by
Michael Hampton from BitcoinHistory.com.
And we're going to move on now to a discussion about Trump and the southern border and the supposed crisis there is down there. Now, there were topics about this last week that we simply chose not to discuss because it's really not something I care that much about. The border shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be a wall there or any sort of fence there or any sort of armed guard there, right?
There shouldn't be a barrier. A man-made barrier. I mean, there's a river there. So.
There's a river in parts, right? I mean, we can't do anything about that. I mean, borders historically generally follow those kinds of geographic divisions, but even so, I mean, there's the Mississippi River, there's the Ohio River, and all kinds of rivers here in the United States around which we don't build border walls because there's no nation there. So what the ideal solution for me would be to abolish the United States of America and just allow people to be free and to come and go as they please.
I'll sign on for that one.
But most people don't agree with that. They believe in some kind of nonsense about state sovereignty or some kind of stupid crap. And they want there to be a border wall armed with armed guards who shoot people who try to trespass or something. And it looks like they're kind of getting their wish in President Trump. Although, thankfully, he still doesn't have the wall. Last week, it wasn't just the White House. It was typically liberal outlets that were reporting an unsustainable crisis at the border wall.
Yeah, what is this unsustainable crisis, though?
I would assume that, I don't know, because we didn't cover it last week, because I just saw the headline and went,
I mean, the big thing I saw from last week's news is that there's a humongous backlog of asylum seekers at the border. They've actually got, in El Paso, they've got a huge fenced-in area under an interstate where they're keeping all these people that they're waiting to take their asylum applications.
So it's a state-created crisis.
Yeah, and it's there's so many of them there that they have actually closed the internal border checkpoints and taken those Border Patrol people out there to process these people through.
I mean, that's all fine, but it's still a state-created problem.
It's still a state-created problem, though.
If they weren't stopping people at the border and saying, "What are you doing here, boy?" then this issue wouldn't exist.
Yeah, that's true.
But White House officials White House officials expressed concern Monday about the potential effects if President Trump follows through on his threat to shut down the U.S. border with Mexico.
Yeah, you can't shut down whatever that means, the U.S. border. It's not possible.
Yes, they can, Michael. We have a Navy, a Coast Guard, a National Guard, and a Marines, an Army, an Air Force. We could absolutely shut down the border.
You'd have to start pulling people back from other countries.
I don't know. I don't know. I think we probably have enough troops here in the United States to do it effectively.
Possibly.
I mean, you only have to shoot like 30 or 40 people before they stop trying, The Russians didn't have to shoot very many people trying to cross the Berlin Wall before they're like, okay, it's kind of not worth it. You're not going to make it. But, of course, there was a wall there, which made it easier for them to murder these people who were trying to escape to better conditions, which is ultimately what we have here at the southern border. I think that we should be honored that these people want to escape here. And I think we should be like, all right, you want to come here where it's great and where there are jobs and stuff? Great. Get to work. Get them a job. We could be in a world of hurt, though, one White House official told CNN on Monday. Apparently, Trump has been tweeting again, saying that he would be closing the border or large sections of the border in the coming week if Mexico does not crack down on illegal border crossings.
If he just closes the border, like if he actually closes the official checkpoints where people go through legally, quote unquote legally, then it's going to be just a complete disruption of commerce for weeks, months. The backlash from that will affect every sector of the economy.
But Trump doesn't really care about how it hurts ordinary people. I mean, if he did, he wouldn't have, got us into a tariff war with China.
That's true.
Although the deadline was new, Trump has threatened to shut down the southern border before. This time around, White House officials have not been willing to bet whether Trump will follow through. You never know, another White House official said. It's anyone's guess.
Yeah, Trump is that crazy.
The official compared the uncertainty to the back and forth over an emergency declaration to fund construction of the border wall, which Trump ultimately decided to do. But the officials also cast doubt on how realistic it is to close down parts of the border and think it could be detrimental to short and long-term goals, including a new trade agreement, commerce flow, and a policy of keeping asylum seekers in Mexico. Or we could just let people come here. That's still my position on it.
Get rid of all this immigration garbage. Get rid of the visas. Get rid of the work permits. Get rid of the green cards. Just let people come here and and live their lives.
I mean, as I understand it, Mexico is not inclined to do anything about people entering the United States legally or illegally.
No.
But as I understand it, they have signs posted of people running, basically saying, do this now, you know?
Yeah, they give directions.
And I think that's a good thing. I think if you want to leave, your state, your government should, A, allow you, and then B, should help you. And insofar as, you know, putting up signs and things like that, like, hey, the exit's over here. People who don't want to be here, people who want to be elsewhere, go elsewhere. I don't see the problem with that. And I don't see the problem of having people who want to be here come here. Let's get rid of the conservatives and the progressives and let in the Mexicans.
You know, how do we deport the conservatives and progressives, though?
Yeah, that's true. We can't do that without initiating force and aggression against them.
It's a tough problem.
It is. It is something I'm sure we'll be looking into and studying, said Kevin Hassett, the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, told reporters Monday. The economic impact would likely be significant if Trump follows through. The U.S. and Mexico are major trading partners, and along with Canada, joined together last year for a ceremonial signing of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, a potential replacement for NAFTA. Trump threatened on several occasions last year to close the Mexico border, including at least one point saying the U.S. would close the border permanently. I'm not a big fan when the government starts closing down borders and things like that, because as Ron Paul observes, you know, if we had this border, they're not just used to keep people out, you know.
They're also used to keep people in.
Yeah, and there may very well come a time where we're like, okay, we got to get out of this place. And air travel isn't going to be feasible because the state operates all of the airlines for all intents and purposes. The same is going to be true of boat and shipping travel, leaving the only real option of crossing that border and escaping into South America. And from there, ideally, you'll be able to take a jet to somewhere else. But you still have to be able to get there.
True.
And, I mean, that's what the people of East Berlin attempted to do. They were like, look, all we have to do is get over there into this safe space, and then we can disappear into the what rest of Europe and go to America, go to wherever we want.
Right.
And now,
just crossing that wall was the big big sticking point, because if they tried it, they might get shot.
Well, they were going to get shot or cut to death with a barbed wire or razor wire, actually.
And your Trump is proposing a wall like this supposedly to keep people out, but the wall works both ways. It keeps people out and in.
It does.
When things get bad enough here that you want to leave, you're going to find that wall is there.
Mexico should move the flag-waving migrants, many of whom are stone-cold criminals, back to their countries. Do it by plane, do it by bus, do it any way you want, but they are not coming into the USA. We will close the border permanently if need be. Congress, fund the wall, he tweeted in November. So he's still peddling that jingoism that his, hardcore Republican base just loves to hear, because there's nothing they like if it's not statism that's targeting brown people that they disapprove of. This is the Call to Freedom. We're going to dig further into the fallacy of this border wall when we get back here in just a moment. Welcome back to the Call to Freedom here on LRN.FM. You're invited to give us a call at 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Or if you want clearer quality, you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. I'm actually kind of surprised by the low number of calls we've gotten today. I mean, it's April the 1st.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. Where are you all with the jokes?
Now, I did verify my identity with the troll group Arab Andy at the beginning of the show. They knew I was going to. A lot of them watched it live, actually. And they were the people who targeted us Friday, right?
Right.
But I expected significantly more of it today, because it's literally as soon as it hit midnight, they destructed their own server, with just spam posts, lots and lots of GIFs, right? Like hundreds of GIFs per post, all of them trying to move it at once, it just makes Discord incredibly laggy and unusable, really. And that's the point. And they did this to themselves, right? So it's like, good God, what else are they going to do? But it's been nothing. It's been complete silence. Perhaps because they can't organize because they've been too busy disrupting their own Discord server.
Yeah, if people are playing pranks on themselves, I mean, go right ahead.
Yeah, obvious result is obvious, right? They remind me of the Hatocracy from Boondocks, for those who have seen that episode. It was the third part of the Stinkmanor series where it was just this hateful group of people who were united in hate to go out there and do hateful things. And I mean, that's essentially what the Arab Andy group is. It's just a bunch of really hateful people who are just venting their hatred. And when they run out of targets, they will absolutely vent it on each other. It's just absolute vitriol, hatred, and disgusting crap posted constantly about anyone and everyone. And it is tremendously amusing when you're just sitting back and watching and go, this is how these people act to each other.
Well, it's got to go somewhere, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Ideally, they would just release that and not be hateful people. But even I will admit that trolling is fun. I don't see the point. They seem to think that they got us Friday somehow. It's like, I don't know. They think they got Free Talk Live as well.
But
they think they got Free Talk or the LRN Discord channel as well. And it's just, I don't get the mentality here.
I was here. I don't know what they got.
But you're invited to give us a call, of course, at 603-283-6160. We've been discussing the border wall and Donald Trump and more of his lunatic tendencies to, to just use Twitter, basically, while having the attention span of an idiot or your average fruit fly.
That's Trump.
Hassett spoke to reporters outside the White House on Monday morning, and when asked if there was an economic modeling to gauge the potential economic impact of a shutdown at the border, he stressed the complex and unique nature of the issue. There's a lot of stuff that moves, and exactly how Customs and Border Patrol would deal with that would be something we'll have to confer with them about, should we get to that. He added, there would be potentially more stuff sourced in the U.S. for a while, but it's something that we'd like to talk to Customs and Border Patrol about. I like the idea of more stuff being sourced in the United States because I would rather my neighbor have a job producing something than not have that job, right? And I think if you're going to have a nation, then some sort of economic independence is probably a good thing.
So is Trump kind of accidentally going to make everyone buy local?
Accidentally, maybe. And I think there would be a lot more damage to his shenanigans than just the positive of reopening some industries here in the United States. Because there were a lot of factories that closed down and moved to Mexico in the late 90s following the NAFTA agreement. Shutting down the border with Mexico, it would, in time, undo some of that, but it's not like
those factories can't reopen here in one day. They have to be rebuilt and retooled, and we
have to have a need for them. And what generally creates that need is going to be unemployment and people having the money to buy the things that are being produced in that factory in the first place.
Right.
And the prices will increase substantially on these goods and things like that. You won't be able to buy a bicycle from Walmart for $40 anymore.
Nope.
Because you'll suddenly have to pay, a factory worker $15 an hour instead of the 15 pesos an hour or whatever they make there in Mexico.
It's going to be really good for the robots.
It will be good for the robots eventually. But Hassett noted that there could be special rules for certain types of things in the event of a shutdown at the border. So what I get from this is that they're going to shut down the border by stacking it with troops where there are no roads.
Right.
And otherwise just allowing, shipping through.
So they'll let commercial traffic through, but then they'll shoot anyone that doesn't come through a checkpoint, and they'll just not let people through who are just regular people.
Yeah. He also referenced the Bush administration's approach to the border in the wake of the September 11th, 2001 attacks.
What?
The U.S. response to 9/11 included increasing inspections and led to longer lines at the border, and it came alongside a temporary air travel shutdown. Yeah, so just a friendly reminder, I was in school at the time, so I wasn't following it that closely, but yeah, shortly after the 9/11 attacks, it was sort of impossible to leave the United States with the southern border shut down and with
with all the air traffic grounded, you pretty much have to drive to Canada.
Legal experts have been divided on the extent to which Trump could close the border. Yeah, and you can't go to Canada to escape somewhere else. I mean, they would turn you over to the United States government very, very quickly.
If they wanted.
In that kind of event. You can't escape into Canada in the same way that you can escape into South America.
Actually,
right?
It's a lot easier to sneak into Canada across the border, and people have been doing that.
Well, yeah, because they're white. So we don't, put walls up there because we don't want to keep out the white people, just the brown ones. And they're south of the border. For instance, categorically closing the border between El Paso and Juarez would trap thousands, if not tens of thousands, of Americans and non-citizens lawfully entitled to be in the United States on the other side of the border, even though many of them would have a strong claim of a right to travel, return home, that could cause serious constitutional problems.
Yeah, that could be bad.
Yeah, but not unexpected. There are lots of Americans coming and going from all other sorts of countries. If you suddenly shut down all travel to those countries, you're going to leave a lot of Americans, on the hook. Yeah. Not that the government cares. That it wouldn't be the first time they've done it. There have been countless Americans who have been stranded in one country or another because of things that the United States government does. And God forbid you want to go to the Middle East right now, or Russia. You'll automatically. I bet you automatically end up on an FBI watch list if you buy a plane ticket to Russia.
It's possible.
Well, I wouldn't be at all surprised. In this current environment of Russian hysteria, where even a person who just comes over here and gets involved in political groups simply because they happen to be Russian, they end up in prison facing charges for spying. Like that fat redheaded chick down in Florida.
Right.
I don't remember her name, but as I understand it, or as I understood it then, I haven't looked into it since, there wasn't really any evidence against her except that she happened to be pro-gun and she happened to be involved in some Republican groups in her area.
Oh, the lady that was working with the NRA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
And this, because she was Russian, led her to be charged with spying. Sort of like how being Chinese has caused lots of people in Canada and the United States to be charged with spying and stealing state secrets and all this other nonsense. It has to stop. You can't have freedom with this kind of insanity going on. This is the call to freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, broadcast as always from the Liberty Radio studio here in Keene, New Hampshire. And apparently, gang members in New Zealand have decided that, they and their members are not going to be turning over their guns to the state.
That's good news.
According to the New Zealand Herald, it says that following the law reform announced by Prime Minister Ardern, a mongrel mob leader has said that his gang members will not be complying. Shocking. Criminals, people who are literally criminals, aren't going to obey the law. Who would ever have suspected that? Sonny Fatu, president of the, or they may not, I don't know if they're a criminal gang or not, actually. I'm assuming
it's a motorcycle gang.
President of the they're going to be a criminal gang once they don't turn in their guns. President of the Waikato branch of the mongrel mob said that while some members of the gang may have illegal guns, they will not be handing them in as they are necessary to their protections. Will gangs get rid of their weapons? No. Because of who we are, we can't guarantee our own safety. He admitted that many of the gang's estimated 1,000 associates hold illegal firearms, but they should be trusted not to harm innocent people, he says. It's not in our culture to inflict harm on innocent people like what happened in Christchurch, Fatu said. He says the public should not be afraid of gang members' guns as they are used in gang-on-gang violence only. Yeah, it does sound it does sound like they're more of a biker gang than an actual criminal gang, but right. Biker gangs, at least here in the West, are kind of sketchy by reputation. Anyway.
By reputation,
I don't know if any of it's true, but I actually do know that at least some of it is true because I had a really messed up childhood, and one of our family friends was in a motorcycle gang, and he was beaten to death after being made to run the gauntlet for shooting up heroin. So they are. I guess that's good that they don't condone heroin, but bad that they beat the dude to death. I mean, come on.
It's a mixed bag.
That is definitely a mixed bag. I would take a heroin user over a murderer any day of the week.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, you can get off heroin, but you can't bring someone back from the dead.
Well, no, but I mean, stuff does happen. But I mean, they deliberately beat this dude to death. I don't know if they deliberately killed him, but they knew it was a possibility and they went through with it. I think it's very different to. It was premeditated, I guess. And I'm not arguing that any sort of criminal offense should exist for any specific act, even murder. But they planned it, clearly. They actually chased him down. It wasn't in Mississippi that they found him. It was in, like, Georgia or something like that. I don't remember because I was 4 years old then. But I remember that he did come by the house or the trailer because, of course, we were this broke white trash heroin-stricken family in rural Mississippi, so of course we lived in a trailer.
Yep.
He came by trying to sell my father a pound of weed because he had to get out of town immediately.
Right.
Because obviously, right? So he ended up selling my dad the whole pound of weed for like $40. So it was a good deal for my dad.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so welcome to my world. Anyway, the attacks between our organizations are gang on gang. They do not involve the non-gang members. Although there may be peripheral damage and violence that occasionally spills out into the public eye, it is absolutely and without intention for any harm to be caused to non-gang members. He said,
"This is all internal. We're not messing with you."
Well, it doesn't really make me feel any better, to know that in their gang-on-gang crime, they might accidentally shoot some 6-year-old kid in the head. But
the NYPD will do that, and they won't apologize or feel bad about it.
Yeah, but I mean, we address their specific gang every single day, right? That's what they are. They're thugs. They're rapists. They're thieves. They're aggressors. They're immoral. But these guys, I don't know why they have these rivalry with other gangs, but apparently it gets kind of violent, and they occasionally just kind of shoot at each other.
Yeah. And, people see that sometimes.
Mongrel mob members have expressed their sympathy and solidarity with the Muslim community and the victims of the Christchurch terrorist attack. Members of the Mongrel mob and Black Power gangs have had public displays of solidarity with the victims, including guarding mosques while Muslim people prayed.
With those very same guns that they are trying to now take away from them.
Definitely. I mean, that's how you keep bad people with guns out, is you get good people with guns to keep them out. And
right.
If bad people with guns get in, then you send good people with guns to handle it.
The thing the government wants you to think is that we don't need good people with guns because the police can handle it.
Well, I mean, yeah, and, there's an argument to be made that, if with a moral police department, if all they did was actually respond to violent crimes, then there could be some justification for that. But that's not what they do.
Yeah, it's not.
Not by any means, and they're not even required to.
Yeah, and the other issue is even if they choose to do it, like the old saying goes, when seconds count, police are 36 minutes away.
Yeah, in the city of Christchurch, where it's they should not take 36 minutes to respond to a shooting.
No.
I think about it in terms of the Vegas shooting. I mean, sure, it took them a while to actually get into his hotel room.
Yeah.
But police there were attempting to respond to it within minutes of when the shooting started. Yeah. They sucked.
The thing a lot of people don't realize, there's this phrase, first responder, which people apparently for whatever reason apply to ambulance crews, police, firefighters, whatnot. Those are not first responders. Those are second responders. You are the first responder because you are right there and you need to respond to whatever's going on.
Yeah, I think one of the most distressing things about some of the Orlando shooting attacks was the people posting on social media and things like that, which you got to wonder the mentality of somebody who's, being hunted by a psychopath with a gun, and they're like, I'm going to tweet about this, right?
Right. No, what you need to be doing is pulling a gun out and shooting back.
Yeah, but I don't want every single person out there to do that because most of them are more likely to hit me than they are to hit the actual shooter, right? They should go through firearms training.
Right.
And then
get your training,
prepare themselves.
Right.
But yeah, that was the most distressing part about it was that there were many people who were hiding in bathrooms and closets and things like that, essentially just waiting to die.
Yeah, no one there was prepared to be what they literally were, the first people to respond, and their response was to do nothing, to cower, to wait for it.
Well, they didn't have any alternatives. Guns weren't allowed in the building, so any of the people who didn't go there intending to murder a bunch of people didn't take their guns with them, even those people who were qualified to respond to that sort of thing with their own gun. So it was a mess from beginning to end. You can't just have, people with guns who know how to use those guns because this is a proud gun-free zone sticker or whatever is going to keep them out.
Yeah, so the proper response to mass shootings, of course, is to take the guns away from the victims.
Yeah, that was sarcasm, by the way. It didn't sound like sarcasm.
It is. Well, that's what they did. That's what they did in Orlando. That's why you had 50 people dying in Pulse, and that's what they did in New Zealand, and what they're trying to do again.
Yeah, and luckily, not very many people in New Zealand have actually fallen for the specious reasoning, and instead are like, wait, I'm not turning in my guns. You do have 36 people as of last count. Yeah,
it was 37 people that turned in a gun, but it was like many, countless people who actually went to a gun store and bought a gun.
Yeah, because, it's stupid. It's stupid on its face. Okay, this bad person with a gun did something that I would never do. So in order to virtue signal to the fact that I would never do that, I'm going to leave myself helpless to the kinds of person who would do that.
Yeah, and then put your address in the newspaper. You're going to get robbed in about 3 days.
Yeah. It reminds me of the guy who turned in his gun or whatever and was like, if I have to do anything to an armed intruder, then I will just use this Louisville Slugger. And I was like, hey,
yeah, good luck.
You may have to cock a shotgun, but it's got you on range there, buddy. And I don't think that Louisville Slugger is going to do much to keep those shotgun shells back.
Oh, no, it's not.
Or even to keep that little 9mm bullet from hitting you. It's insane. You need to be able to defend yourself. This is the Call to Freedom. We'll be back. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and maybe you really like the show and would like to show your support. Maybe you've been wondering how you can do that. The social media shares certainly go away, but so does cash, and you can do that with Patreon at patreon.com/call to freedom. Our wonderful patrons there. We picked up a new one today, by the way.
Oh, nice.
One of our YouTube watchers. They are currently helping to keep the show up and running, including both the podcast at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com and the website at calltofreedomlive.com. And we can't thank them enough for showing their support for our efforts by helping to ensure that it's all ongoing. Once more, that's patreon.com/call-to-freedom if you would like to check it out. We're joined now via our Discord app by Dani.
Dani, yeah, part of your name appears to be in Japanese.
Yeah, Kanashimi.
Who is calling in to discuss the situation between Japan and China, it would seem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something I have followed at all,
well,
honestly.
I know Japan and China have had a long history of being at each other's throats and not getting along very well.
Yeah, but I haven't followed it in any sort of modern context. And from what Dani says, there's stuff still going on. So what exactly is going on, and how would you say it started?
Do you want a little bit of background?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Would you like a little bit of background about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so starting about 2017, the Japanese Self-Defense Force started to amp up active recruitment and investment, and they started pulling away their GDP. They actually made shifts in the GDP for more military spending. I believe it made a change from less than 1% of the GDP to a 1.7%. I'm not quite sure, but that's a pretty substantial shift for such a profitable country.
It definitely is. And our perspective on military spending versus GDP is a bit warped here in the United States, obviously, because a lot
of the U.S. military. Yeah.
But so we hear 1%, we're like, oh well, that's not too big a deal, and we think the same about 1.7%. But
for
a
country like Japan, that's huge.
A 70% increase is certainly huge.
So one of the new things in 2017, they had a live fire exercise, and one of the first real military displays in a long time. Over 26,000 people came to watch brand newly developed cruise missiles, anti-tank missiles, helicopters. It was a really, really big display. This all came about because of the artificial islands, which you guys probably know about.
Yeah.
That China began building. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the United States has gotten really butthurt about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're like, you need to stop expanding. And they're like, dude, we are nowhere near you. Chill out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And we're like,
it's a Japanese problem. Yeah, so I was just, and I've had some people, that I've talked about this with, they say that this shift from a pacifist Japan to a constitution shirking Japan. So what they've been doing is, in the Constitution written by America, they aren't allowed to build offensive capable versus vehicles.
Right.
It's like an aircraft carrier. If as Americans, you understand that an aircraft carrier is like a show of superiority of force and great offensive capability. They're not allowed to build those. However, they build helicopter carriers instead.
That's one way to get around it.
Oh, yeah. But what they've done is, for whenever so there's a new party. It's relatively conservative in the American style of conservatism. I'm not sure what word to use. I'm not American myself.
No problem.
There you go.
So where are you from? You said you're not American yourself? I meant to ask
Bosnia and Herzegovina, but I'm an American now.
You're from where?
Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. But I'm an American now, and proudly not socialist.
Yes, thank you very much.
Glad to hear it.
You're welcome.
So who would you characterize as being in the right or in the wrong in regard to the China versus Japan situation?
We can nitpick where there's right and wrong. So in the quote unquote South China Sea and all of that, all the water in the Asiatics, there's a very historical claim by Japan to all land, including the islands which have been expanded upon by China. Okay. There's plenty of old scripture that does point to that being owned by Japan. But that
wouldn't include the new islands that China has built.
Yeah, it wouldn't. However, those new islands are strategically placed to allow aircraft patrols and naval patrols that stop entrance into Japan's own islands.
Oh, okay.
So for China, this is all about expanding their military reach to kind of encircle Japan and put pressure on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all a big focal point.
Interesting. I had never considered that aspect of it. As I said, I'm largely ignorant of what's going on in that area in general.
Yeah, we've got enough going on here that it's hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, but I mean, the United States has certainly taken a side in this, and it's unequivocally going to
Japanese
be the side.
size.
Yeah.
Against China.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you say thankfully? I don't see any real good coming from this.
Well, the good is, thanks to the U.S. creating the new Japanese constitution, I say new, but it's World War II era.
Right.
They can also play a role in abolishing it and allowing for true legal offensive buildup. Because, as I said, we're shirking.
To make this offensive buildup.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, they're working around it by building, for instance, helicopter carriers, which for a few $1 million can be turned into aircraft carriers.
Yeah, those could be converted pretty fast. So I can see it.
But
they can't actually do it.
to be clear, what you want is for China to have stronger. I mean, not China. Sorry. What you want is for Japan to have stronger offensive capabilities.
Absolutely.
To discourage
their
China.
ground units. Yeah, their ground units are built. They're like in design. The fuel efficiency of their armored vehicles is abominable. It's like 270 kilometers. They're literally designed to not go any farther than Japan. You couldn't even make a circle around the country.
Wow. Yeah, there's very little offensive capability there.
Absolutely. And it's the Japanese self-defense force. So it's posture to begin with to
I mean, sure, but
be a whole lot of nothing.
If they're incapable of defending themselves, like let's assume the worst case scenario and that China uses these islands and its naval and air superiority to shut down trade with Japan, it would be a failure of Japan's defense systems to be unable to deal with
it would
that.
force America's hand. That's kind of the problem.
Yeah, at this point, if China makes any big overt moves against Japan, the U.S. will have to respond.
And that's where the big issue comes in, because that's two superpowers clashing. And
hello, World War III.
Exactly. I'd be worried.
I wouldn't, because I think I think the prospect is very, very minor of it actually happening.
Yeah, I think neither side really wants there to be open warfare. They're just kind of pushing the boundaries until they think as long as they think they can get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of skirmishes. There's been literal naval deaths in naval battles, but there's no war.
There have been
never will be
between Japan and China.
And South Korea and China, and then South Korea and Japan, and
Wasn't
then
the
U.S.
involved? Yeah, in one of those?
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, real skirmishes where destroyers fire upon another country's destroyers.
Yeah, I thought I'd heard
and it is reported
China
as a naval clash.
Sank an American ship.
Oh yeah,
I might be wrong, but I thought I'd heard that.
Yeah,
I didn't hear what
China
you said.
also. He said that they sank an American ship.
Interesting.
I don't know if that was if it was a military ship, but
yeah. So the contention is that China sank an American ship. This is the first time I've heard about that.
Yeah, I thought I'd read something about that like months ago.
Oh yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be terribly surprised, and in a sense, I would be, because Trump is certainly no fan of China, and he's made a lot of statements against them. I would tend to think he would react very strongly to that. But as I said, this is not an issue I've looked into extensively. It's one that I will look into tonight after work, or actually more likely tomorrow night. So stick around. Free Talk Live is coming up next. You're welcome to call back tomorrow to discuss this further, because as I said, we're ignorant of it. Or you can call into Free Talk Live later and discuss it with them. This has been the Call to Freedom.